Okay, today we're going to look at Modern World History 3.3 and 3.5. We're going to start with 3.3, which is explain the role of Islam on the cultures of the Middle East, North Africa, and Asia, including its methods of expansion, its impact of religious diversity, and reaction to its expansion. I want you to, in your textbook, look at section 10, chapter 10, section 1, and how Islam started on the Arabian Peninsula here. And in the city of Mecca. It's an really interesting story. Muhammad having his revelations around 40 years old, and through the archangel Gabriel, and then Allah giving him these revelations, and from that point writing down the revelations and eventually trying to spread his religion. The area in Mecca was polytheistic, and a lot of people came there not only to doing the trade, because there was massive trade from Asia and Asia Minor here in North Africa, but they also came here to worship, and it was polytheism. So his message of monotheism didn't take hold right away, and it also threatened the Meccans, who had a very vibrant society, a very, very wealthy society based on polytheism. But the spread would happen once Muhammad was able to return from Medina and take back Mecca. You notice that the arrows showing all the military campaigns and the expansion and how successful they were. They were a disciplined army, and they were very, very good fighters. Also, we're talking about the expansion here, and it would go on, and let's look at some different places like sub-Saharan Africa. It would always be based on their expansion. I'm going to get the other map here. After the military expansion, as you see here, their trade routes. Okay? Now, when we talk about their trade routes, let's talk about leadership for a minute. We see right here the first four caliphs. After Muhammad's death, these four caliphs, or successors of Muhammad, knew Muhammad. Okay? And then later you would have the Umayyads and the Abbasids would lead. And you see all the trade routes that were established in the Islamic world. It's pretty amazing here. Okay? And that would spread over time. So militarily, they were able to conquer, and then through trade, they were able to build a great deal of wealth. Okay, and then as far as their expansion, even let's look here into North Africa. The Berbers, basically North African people, converted to Islam, and then they would come up here to the Iberian Peninsula, which is Spain, basically, and they would threaten Europe. Also, we talked about religious diversity. All right, religious diversity was very important, as the Muslims would take people that they conquered that had been persecuted, and they would allow them to keep their religions, to worship as they wish. All right, they offered them equality and hope in the world, and they were also, these people that were conquered by the Muslims were attracted to the economic benefits of the Muslims, and not having to pay a poll tax. So they did a good job as far as treating the people that they conquered in a correct way. Remember, when you read through that first section in the Quran, Muhammad, when we look at Christians and Jews, they were known as people of the book. So they respected Judaism, the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible. They respected Christianity and the Gospels. So there were differences. The Muslims did not believe Christ to be the Son of God, but a prophet. And Muslims also believed, of course, that Muhammad was the last of the prophets. I want to now look at the Modern World History 3.5, comparing the spread of religion and the development of trade routes and diplomatic connections. We did that on the last slide with the map, including, it says, Christian missionary work, Buddhist and Islamic pilgrimages, and the competition between Muslim and Christians for territory. The question that we have on the sheet for essential knowledge is, what are the basic tenets of Islam? Okay, so I'm going to go kind of around here, the 5 pillars of Islam. First, the pledging of the faith. Muslims are to basically make the statement of faith that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. So there's the pledge of faith. The pilgrimage is very important to the holy city of Mecca in the Arabian Peninsula. They're to go there. All those that are physically or financially able are to take a Hajj or a pilgrimage to Mecca to worship. Pilgrims will wear identical garments so that all stand equal before Allah. Okay. Fasting during Ramadan. Fasting is a physical act, of course, of not eating. They eat a simple meal, but basically not eating from dawn to sunset. And basically, this is an act to teach them that their spiritual needs are greater than their physical needs. Charity to the poor, or alms. Muhammad taught that all Muslims have a responsibility to support the poor, and they have a social responsibility, and this would be paid through a special religious tax to take care of the poor. All right. Ritual and prayer. They pray 5 times a day, facing Mecca. Muslims would pray in a mosque or a house of worship if they're there or wherever they could find themselves. But their prayer is 5 times a day. One other thing I want to show you here is the difference between Shiite and Sunni Muslims. Okay, now I see on the map here, Sunni Muslims, the majority of folks that are Muslim are Sunni. Sunni Muslims believe in the example of Muhammad, his teachings and his example. The minority within the Islamic faith is the Shia. Shia, they believe in the descendants of the direct descendants of Muhammad, and they're in the minority there mostly, and you see in Iran, some in Iraq are Shia Muslims. Okay, Sunni being the majority. So I just wanted to make the difference, tell you the difference in that. In 10.2, they have a good section for you to read related to this, the Shia and the Sunni Muslims. Last thing I want to look at in these standards that you can find in Chapter 10, Section 3, a lot of the information about Muslim scholarship and knowledge is really important. In the other standard, we were looking at Europeans in the Middle Ages, and basically I was trying to give you a picture of how the transfer of goods and ideas and people coming into Europe would take it from medieval time to the Renaissance or the rebirth. And I was saying that came from Islam, from the Muslim culture and the Muslim empire. Now, several examples that they have really came from kind of a center of knowledge, a center of maybe like a university we call today the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. Scholars of different cultures and beliefs work side by side, translating texts from Greece, India, Persia, and elsewhere into Arabic. Their literature, they were able to, besides the writing of the Quran, popular literature including The 1001 Nights, a collection of fairy tales, parables, and legends. Their art and architecture, calligraphy, or the art of beautiful handwriting. They also did great artworks in glass, ceramics, woodwork, and textiles. As far as architecture is concerned, you've got the great Mosque of Damascus, was built on a site of a Christian church. In many ways, the huge dome and vaulted ceilings of the mosque blend Byzantine architecture with Muslim ideas, and basically we see the picture here of the mosque, which, like I said, once a Christian church. When you look at it, you see the vaulted ceilings and things like that. The vaulted ceilings, when you look inside here, it's really, like I said, you can see the Christian and the Byzantine influence, the Eastern Byzantine Christian influence, but it's a mosque, and you see the Muslim culture also there. So it's an amazing piece of architecture. Medically, they were able to write an encyclopedia, a comprehensive book, book of knowledge about medicine that was in Greek, Syrian, Arabic, and Indian sources were used to bring this together. A treatise on smallpox and measles. As far as math and science is concerned, they relied on scientific observation and experimentation, the ability to find mathematical solutions to problems. As for science, the Muslims translated and studied Greek text, but they did not follow the Greek method of solving problems. So that was an important in moving in their own direction and deciding how to solve problems. And a lot of the ways they solved them, or in looking at their mathematics, was through astronomy. Muslims would observatories would chart stars and comets, planets, and so basically Islamic society was much more advanced for hundreds of years as Europe was in the Middle Ages. You would say, or is often said, that the empire is its diverse nature. When describing the ideal man, he would be in this Muslim empire, in this Muslim culture.